My first video on NFTs went great. Anyway, I wanted to revisit the topic of NFTs because, in trying to give a basic overview of what they are, I glossed over a lot of the nuances that exist within the NFT debate. So, for this video, I wanted to briefly bring up a couple of the points that I missed. So, with that being said, I assume by now that you'll already know the basics of NFTs, but if not, I'll give a basic summary of what I've already covered, or you can go back to my last video for more detail as well as my bibliography. NFT Speedrun, 3, 2, 1, go. NFT is short for non-fungible token, which is a piece of data that represents a unique item, usually a creative work and/or digital file. NFTs are logged on a type of ledger called a blockchain, which stores blocks of data in chronological order and can be bought and sold, usually at high prices. One prominent example is an NFT by Beeple that represents this JPEG here, which was sold for almost $70 million. There are both pros and cons to NFTs. The good is that, in theory, creating NFTs for virtual files gives the work made by digital artists a sense of authenticity, and therefore making it more valuable in the art market and allowing artists to earn from their hard work. However, there are also negative consequences which, in my opinion, outweigh the positives. It's very easy to make NFTs of other people's work without their consent for profit. There are questions over whether an NFT means anything at all when the file is usually free to view and download anyway. And of course, the huge financial and environmental costs due to the amount of money it takes to run a blockchain. At the end of the video, I also stated my position on NFTs, which is that while I understand the appeal, I do not like them and think the negatives are too dangerous to make the pros worth it. Okay, are we all caught up? Yes? Good. Now we can get to the topics I wanted to talk about. The first thing that I want to address is that NFTs are not very effective for their marketed purpose. One of the most prominent arguments I've seen in support of NFTs, which I mentioned in my first video, is that it makes selling your work easier for small artists, since investors and collectors are drawn to things that can be seen as unique and valuable. And I'm here to tell you that this means absolutely nothing. Nothing. This is due to how many markets eventually become dominated by larger companies, often by buying out smaller businesses in their industry or sending them out of business. I have heard people refer to this phenomenon as the tendency towards monopoly. A monopoly being the exclusive possession or control of the supply of or trade in a commodity or service. It's also a board game. I don't think it's quite that black and white. For instance, there's the duopoly between Unilever and Procter & Gamble, and what we call big tech is made up of a handful of different corporations. That being said, the principle remains the same. In a free market, where technically anyone can start a business, few actually prevail, and even less can become major players in their industry. And this principle bleeds over into the NFT market. While there are definitely smaller artists that have made a bit of money off of NFTs, the playing field is dominated by people and groups who were already well known. Consider Beeple, who I mentioned earlier, the Gorillas, the guy who founded Twitter, and Logan fucking Paul. And I would like to briefly mention that art theft has been a recurring issue throughout the NFT craze. Multiple artists at all different skill and popularity levels have reported seeing their art being turned into NFTs by others without consent. An especially egregious example of this is the late Kinney Arts' sister literally had to ask people to stop selling her work as NFTs. I don't know, I think it's messed up. Meanwhile, those who don't have pre-existing exposure or popularity are left making NFTs that sell for much smaller amounts or not at all, and they end up paying more to put their work on the blockchain than they actually get back due to gas fees and energy cost. Oh, and speaking of energy cost, and then there's the aftermath of getting into NFTs. Across Twitter especially, there's been reports of people who used to sell NFTs pretending that it never happened. It's been reported that some are saying they stopped NFT production because of environmental concerns, or have switched back to advertising their pre-existing forms of income while trying to push back evidence that they were ever involved with the trend in the first place. But I highly doubt that these people distancing themselves from the NFT phenomenon are doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. You see, around the time I released my first video, the NFT market started to crash. I only touched on it briefly when commenting on how NFT hype was more of a trend than something likely to be long-lasting, but that doesn't lower its significance. For a special few, it was extremely lucrative. But when you're trying to make bank on a platform as big as the World Wide Web, you really need to keep an eye on your reputation. A lot of people hopped onto the NFT bandwagon as creators or collectors, or sometimes both, and obviously a lot of people have stuck with it. Then there's people like me who really don't like NFTs, because when you take off the mask of authenticity, you're selling a whole lot of nothing, usually on a proof-of-work blockchain, which means you're also messing with power supply and damaging the environment. Even this article from 2017 saw the effect of blockchains coming. It says, "The tremendous growth of cryptocurrencies has created an exponential demand for computing power. As Bitcoin grows, the math problems computers must solve to make more Bitcoin get more and more difficult, a wrinkle designed to control the currency's supply. That sort of electricity use is pulling energy from grids all over the world, where it could be used to be charging electric vehicles and powering homes, to Bitcoin mining farms." What that means is that if you want to sell NFTs, people are going to get rightfully mad at you, so balancing your profits and reputation won't be easy, and once the trend started to fade, the value of NFTs went down, and it's no longer worth having a bad rep for. Long story short, people are hiding their past involvement with NFTs to save their reputation because it's no longer profitable. As the 2017 article suggests, this information isn't new. If these people did actually care about environmental impact or the artists that are losing money off of NFTs, they'd have quit much sooner. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I think NFTs suck and we should all ignore them and other cryptocurrencies until they go away. I have had enough of recording this video. Thank you, goodbye.